Let's go ahead and get started in Chapter 2. Just to jump right back in and start creating a new drawing, just a reminder, you do have two choices when you start a new drawing. The first way is to click on this the Part button, which immediately takes you over into the drawing area. If you want to change up your units, you can go over here under File, click New, or you can click on the little New tab up there in the Quick Access menu bar, or just click New there, and then that's going to prompt you with your templates. You have it's probably going to be broken down. It's probably just going to have templates there, and you're going to have to expand out the drop down arrow in order to get into your units, so that you have English and metric, so you can pick between those two units and you're going to find more template files. So we're going to be starting off with using the standard IPT file. So you can access the file this way as well, but just to note, in the future when you click on this one right here, this is going to be your English units, and you're not going to have a way to go back and change it to metric after you have started from this point. So if you click on Part, that immediately starts your IPT file and you're now ready to begin. So just to look at a couple things before we move on, just a review. This is going to be your 3D model ribbon up here at the top. So we've got to look at some of the create toolbars. This is going to be used quite often. So each one of your commands are going to be nested inside of your toolbar. When you click on each one of these tabs here, this is going to change the toolbar, and you can just toggle in between each one of those. So when you create or start your 2D sketch, this is the area that you're going to use to create the 2D sketch. Over here is the model browser, so expect to see some changes happening over here, and we'll highlight those later on. Your status bar down here at the bottom, when you go into certain commands, you'll be prompted down here for information that it's looking for you to enter. So let's go ahead and let's start your 2D sketch. So we want to make sure when we click on the down arrow that we're picking the Start 2D Sketch. So the first thing that pops up is the work planes. So you have three general work planes. The XY work plane is parallel with the front plane. So those of you who are familiar with your 6 orthographic viewing planes, the front is parallel with the XY plane. So we're going to start off with the XY plane to begin with. This is just going to be the first location where you're putting your two-dimensional sketch. So we can pick that right there, and we immediately switch over into our sketch area. So those of you who are really familiar with your coordinate system, this is going to be your 0, 0. We still use the same, it has the XY coordinate system. Even if you turn this around, we have the X and the Y. We're on the X and the Y plane right now. Z is going into the page right now, or coming out towards us. So this is how we're able to keep track of our viewing plane and what we're working on. So I like to start off with the front and make sure that I'm aware of that 0, 0 point. So what we're going to do now is start just creating a basic rough sketch. We want to look up here at our sketch toolbar. So some of these commands should be familiar with you. It's very much like AutoCAD. So you've got the line command, circle, arc, each one of those, and rectangle, and we'll just move it on down here. You can see a bunch of the commands that are familiar. Remember that when you're looking for something and you can't find it, to look and see if there is a drop down arrow. So there are more commands. Create block is up underneath there. There's some modify commands here as well, and then we've got pattern and dimensions and constraints. So we'll be working with all of these here in the near future. Alright, so I'm going to pick the line command to go ahead and get started with my sketching. So I am going to start on the drawing for this, I'm on page 212 in your textbook. So what I'm looking to do is just to create a geometry. So we're going to start working on the adjuster design problem that is shown in your isometric form on page 24, but I'm actually over on 2-12 of your assignment, so or in your textbook. So what we're going to do is we're going to sketch out these basic points, and really to understand why we're doing this. As you start drawing, you'll see that your line command, when you're drawing, it has the dynamic input that you're probably familiar with. This is built in. This is just to give you a heads up approach to entering the lengths of the lines. But as we're doing these problems, I want you to use like a sketch method first. This is part of the parametric modeling. I want you to sketch the part, and then we're going to define the constraints afterwards. So for this problem here, what I'm just going to ask you to do is just basically sketch the overall geometry. So well, I missed that, but oh well, it's okay. So we're just basically creating a sketch, and I'm not assigning any dimensions, and at this point I haven't assigned any of the geometric constraints that need to go with this problem. So geometric constraints, this is for those of you who are crossover from AutoCAD, these are some of the things that are going to be like your endpoints and keeping things perpendicular, parallel. There is on page I don't know what page this is on page 211, these constraints are defined for you, so you need to start looking at those, taking a minute to review those. The nice thing about these is they do pop up as they are as you're completing them. So if you have two lines that are perpendicular, the perpendicular constraint is going to automatically apply itself. It can be removed, so don't worry if you get a constraint on there that you don't need. It can be removed, and you can also add additional constraints. So when I look at my problem here, you can see some of these constraints, and as you get to familiarize yourself with the pictorial representation of a constraint, use this little box right here as a method to double check yourself. Like if you look at this and you go, oh, I can't remember what that is, take a look up here, find the constraint, and then just point to it, and you'll see that you can get the name of it, and that's the horizontal constraint. So that means that this line has been constrained horizontally. This one here has the 90 degrees, so that means that is 90 degrees. This one has the parallel constraint. I'm not sure what that's parallel. Oh, it's parallel to this line right here. So those two lines are parallel. This one does not have a constraint on it, but I can quickly put a constraint. So I can click on the line itself. Oops, let's undo that. Click on the line itself, and then I can apply a horizontal constraint, and it will update that. I can click on this one here and apply the vertical. Go back. Sorry. Click on that line there and apply the vertical constraint, and it's going to make that one into a vertical object. So I didn't sketch that out in the book. They sketched everything out with 90-degree angles. You could probably save yourself some time and slow down and do a better job than I did. But I just wanted to review the constraints and let you know that if you don't get it perfect, it's okay. You can come back and you can make that adjustment. So now what I want to do is start putting some dimensions on this problem. So we're going to apply the dimensions using our Smart Dimension command. You can pick on the line itself when you dimension, or you can pick from point to point. So I think the quick and easy way is just to pick on the horizontal line and drag out the dimension, and then the dimension will be specified. So we're going to, if you hit the green button or the enter button, or also your right mouse button and hit the green check there, that is acceptable as well. So there's a couple ways to hit the enter button to keep that locked in. So I'm just going to go through and finish dimensioning the rest of this part. I'm just going to work myself around and place the dimensions. And just hit the green check button as I finish. And notice all of my lines to this point have been are purple. Okay, so these are to show me that this part is not fully constrained. When the part is fully constrained, these purple lines will then turn black, and that is an indicator that we are fully constrained. In the lower right-hand corner box down here, this is a XY cursor location, so I can see where I am in relationship to the 0, 0 point. And then the next box over tells me how many dimensions I need in order to fully constrain this part. So that is just a couple other little things that you need to know as you're looking at your screen and understanding what's going on in this area. So if I want to zoom in and zoom out of this, I can use my scroll button. Okay, the pan button, if you hold down your scroll button, you can pan, move things around. So I don't know where your drawing is now, but if you ever need to move things around, know that you can move things around very easily in Inventor. Your hand over here, especially like if you're using a laptop with a little the touchpad for your mouse, you're going to probably get very familiar with this pan button, because this pan, if you click on that, will allow you to pan and move your screen around. You also have the zoom in or zoom all, zoom window, zoom selected, and just plain old zoom. So you can zoom in and out with that, and zoom all. This button right here is your orbit button. This is free orbit. This allows you to spin your part and look at it three-dimensional. Okay, so we're only on the XY plane right now, so that's why we only have a 2D drawing. And if you get things spun around, remember that you can always come back up here and click on one of these cubes. Okay, so remember that I had the XY plane parallel to the front plane on my view cube. So I can pick on the front view of my view cube, and we can turn that object around. So if you happen to get out of the correct orientation for your drawing, you can always work your way back. So we'll go over view cube a little bit more later. So just kind of looking at different ways of modifying and moving things around, you do need to become familiar with that, and that will come as second nature as we finish continuing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply the other two dimensions that I need. So what it's looking for is not necessarily this dimension right here. This is, if I put this dimension over here, that will be over constrained. I'm looking for two dimensions that's going to lock this down to my 0, 0 point. So I'm going to now place this dimension right here, and then so you can see my vertical lines all turn black. So I'm going to hit check there, and I'm going to put this dimension from the horizontal line to my 0, 0 point. I'm going to place this dimension here. All my lines turn black. So those were the two dimensions I was missing for that part to be fully constrained. And over here on the right side it says it's fully constrained. So what I want to do now is I'm going to start off by putting this in my 0, 0. So I'm going to make that a 0, and I'm going to click on this and make that a 0. And now that brings that object back down to the origin. If I had started in that origin location, I would not have had to have done that step. So it would have already constrained itself to 0, 0. But since I didn't start there, I wanted to bring that back, and I've now successfully got that done. So I'm going to finish off putting the dimensions, the rest of the dimensions on this part. It's given to you on page, I think it's 216. So I'm just kind of flipping over to that page now, making sure that that's where it is. Yep, 216. So I'm going to now modify the dimensions that are given to me. So I'm going to place those dimensions by clicking on the dimension itself, type in the new value, hit the enter button or the check button, and then the part will update. So as part of this, sometimes your drawings do get